It's April 9th, 2019, and thank you for joining us for this weekly global meditation for lasting peace. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces and to see a lot of new faces, and more people will probably join us. If you're new and if you don't mind, maybe you could type in your name or at least what city you're from. We usually have people gather from different parts of the United States, from North America, from Europe. And as a way of, on a regular basis, cultivating this level of, deeper level of what I say, weaving a golden thread of lasting peace through the world, using this phenomenal vehicle called the World Wide Web, which can be used, as we know, as we see play out in our politics and in our and in society, how it can be used to harm. Nice to see how we can use it to inject some open-heartedness and a desire for deeper levels of collaboration, and weave that through the world. That's Marilyn from Austin, Texas. Welcome. And my name is Joe Weston. Arlington, more Texas, sweet, and San Francisco. It's great to see you all. Really pleased to see new faces. Cheryl Gravy is on here. She's from the National Institute for Civil Discourse, and she and I are hosting this particular week. We do this every week, but this particular week we're dedicating this session to an event that's happening nationally and now globally. The National Week of Conversation, which is working with this premise that, with perhaps a hope or premise that if we can figure out ways to communicate, channels to communicate with each other, and if we can figure out effective ways to speak our truth and really listen to the truth of others, things may shift. And so Todd is presenting to the website for the National Institute for Civil Discourse, and hopefully also the website for the National Week of Conversation. And before I begin the meditation and a little bit of a talk, Cheryl, perhaps you'd like to say something.
Yes, thank you, Joe, and welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you all. I have the privilege of being with many of you each week, and I've found this weekly tradition to be both grounding and really reflective of what the National Institute for Civil Discourse knows from our work. And as part of this National Week of Conversation, 200 different organizations around the country, connecting people to each other, human being to human being, with a core rooted element of listening to each other across our differences for understanding. And one of the things that I've deeply loved about the work that Joe has done in bringing us together each week is that we think about and reach out not only to loved ones and to friends, but we reach out to people we don't know energetically through the internet, and we even reach out with a mindfulness towards our adversaries. And one of the things we found with the National Institute for Civil Discourse base with each other and focused on our humanity, we build new bridges that are even hard for us to imagine right now, but are so important for connecting us human to human, community to community, country to country, globally. So with that, I'm so pleased to see some familiar faces and new faces like Joe said, and to be with you all today for this National Week of Conversation gathering.
Thank you, Cheryl. So if you don't know much about NICD, I would recommend you take a look. Cheryl and her colleagues are doing amazing work. And what I'd like to do is just give a little context for this session. We're calling it Courageous Civility, listening internally and connecting across differences globally. And that is really in alignment with the work that I've developed called Respectful Confrontation. And if you don't know much about it and you'd like to read a little bit about it, I've written a book called Mastering Respectful Confrontation. The basic premise of that is that just observing what's happening in the world comes from an initial question of, even as a child and through my life, examining why is it, even though we know better, even though we're technologically, we're a relatively intelligent species, why is it, even though we know better, we still have arguments and fights, and on a larger scale, crime and war and hunger? And I usually, I would say that most people would say, well, that's just the way we are. And on some level, that is an accurate answer. But I was never satisfied with that answer. Neither was Cheryl, and I would imagine neither are a number of you people on this call for this meditation as well. And the more we can understand what the root cause is of what keeps us in arguments and fights, and what keeps us in this cycle of extreme poverty for some, and crime and war, if we can identify the root causes, then maybe we can shift the problem. And that we spend a lot of time blaming, and we spend a lot of time creating enemies and separation. We spend a lot of time thinking that we can come up with quick solutions, or we all are caught up in our own internal thing of, we see our, I got to have mine, and getting away from our initial core values of what human beings were really gifted with, which is an innate sense of compassion and generosity. When we get caught up in those cycles, that's how we stay in these cycles of crime and war. And I use the term courageous civility because at this time, I think currently in the world, it's actually becoming a courageous act for us to choose into values of civility, where we're seeing that I truly believe that we're moving into that place where we're understanding that we have to connect. The Mother Earth is just telling us that if we don't start working together to solve some of the initial problems, and on some level you could say we're in big trouble. And now is the time. There's an urgency to that. And in a lot of the lectures and trainings I give, I'll often say that why are we still in this perpetual cycle of polarity, where we're not communicating and where we're creating more enemies in a sense? And what I often say is that if you stop and think about it, if only hanging out with people who already agree with you were going to solve our world problems, then of course we would have already solved our world problems, because we're already basically only hanging out with people who agree with us. So if that's not causing the results we want, or is the answer, then in essence, what could that answer be? And the philosophy that I work with, and I know Cheryl works with, and others, is we have to develop the courage and the skills to communicate with people that are different. And that we have to develop the skills to be able to share our truth without blame, without attack, without criticism, realizing that that this concept that at the core of respectful confrontation is that my truth does not equal the truth. That it's a starting point to just share your side of the story, and then to have the courage to listen to the truth of another. And when that can be done with open-heartedness and with a sense of truly listening, and without blame, without attack, without criticism, then I truly believe, and I've seen it happen, doing this work for many years now, that where there were new solutions, suddenly new solutions emerge. And that it's a great concept and it's a great idea, but the question is, are we practicing that on a regular basis? And that is, in essence, what this weekly meditation is to practice that we develop a more resilience and a more what I call fierce compassion. So that when we do move in the world and we are connecting with others, we are aware of the way we're viewing things, of our own reactivity, and can make different choices that lead to collaboration and inclusion. I just want to share that last week I did a training for some top senior leaders in an organization. And at the end of every training, I'll always ask, that the group goes around in a circle and just says in a few words, I just say, what are you going home with? Or what did you experience? And one woman said, after this training, she said, it feels good to feel human again. And that really struck me deeply, that I was like, wow, I've never heard anybody say that. That it said it feels great to feel human again. And that this training, which is about leadership for top leaders, that her biggest takeaway is that I was, and I, my interpretation of that was that she was able to get out of her very goal-driven way of living in the world, very much in her head, very much about success and failure, about profit, and that she was able to get back to herself, get back to her heart, which I would say back to her humanity, and actually connect with others with their hearts and get back to their humanity. And I found her wording interesting. It feels great. It's great to feel human again. Didn't say it's great to be human again. It's great to feel human again. And I think if we take that into the world, what are we holding? What are our core values? How do we want to resonate in the world? And that to realize that it's a real practice, particularly in a world where there's a lot of stress and a lot of unknown and a lot of anxiety, a lot of aggression, even, particularly if you're in an urban environment, to still be able to practice a certain level of open-heartedness. And the respectful confrontation method it's a method and a practice that helps us to cultivate on a moment-to-moment basis with full confidence the courage and the skills to stand in your power, speak your truth, get your needs met in a way where you don't get harmed and other people don't get harmed. And that's the key point, is that we can advocate for ourselves, we can share what we have to offer on the planet, we can have the impact we want to have, and give other people, and create an environment and a culture of what I would call mutual empowerment, where we encourage others to step into their power and share what they have to offer. And to do that in a way of being assertive, which is different from aggressive, so that you can have an impact, stand in your power without it harming others or you getting harmed yourself. And that's the basis for lasting peace. I'm very, very grateful and have great respect for all the peace advocates in the world, the demonstrators, those who are really fighting for peace and for justice and for equality. And that creates some really important shifts in our culture. And I always say there also have to be those of us who are holding space for what I call lasting peace, where it's not about a quick, drastic change. That can be beneficial. But what do we need to cultivate as human beings, where we, once the shifts happen, we can make sure they stay. And we see that happening around the world now, not just in the United States, but around the world, where there's a real polarized sense of what's playing out in politics. And how do we break that cycle? And that's really what this meditation offers, is a practice to be able to do that. So I just want to offer that as a context as we do this meditation. The meditation is based on something that I've developed called the core exercise, which is about coming from your core and moving through the world from that place, your personal power and from your heart. And for those of you who are working with me for the first time, when I refer to the core, some of you might know it from your own practices of the dantian or the hara, or or movement, that idea of coming from your lower belly. So if you, before we start, just so that we're all clear on what that you understand what I'm referring to, your core is about the width of 3 fingers below your navel and 1/3 of the way into the body. So if you want to investigate that, if you put your fingers together, place your index finger over your navel, where your pinky resides, that's about the width of 3 fingers below your navel. So bringing your awareness to that point. And then from that point, the width of 3 fingers below your navel, now bringing your awareness inside of your body, about 1/3 of the way. And now placing your attention. If you, for those of you, if you wouldn't mind muting your device for this meditation time, that might be helpful. So bringing your full attention to this spot in your lower belly, the width of 3 fingers below your navel, 1/3 of the way into the body. We say it's if it feels safe for you to close your eyes so that you can really investigate. This exercise helps develop a deeper level of listening, opening to more of your senses that don't rely on just your eyes. Taking some deep breaths into your lower belly. And noticing the parts of your body that are connecting with the chair. If you're sitting on a chair or a cushion or the floor, parts of your body that are connecting with the floor, the chair, cushion. Using those points as an anchor point. And see if you can allow gravity to help you drop deeper into those points, into the chair, the cushion, the floor. Every time you do this, you're kind of whispering to your nervous system the message: you are held, you are supported. You don't have to do it alone. With each exhale, just allowing gravity to bring you closer to the ground, keeping your focus and awareness in your center. Your center of gravity, creativity, impulse, where your personal power resides. In your center of perception and awareness, how you perceive your reality. From your center, become aware of your physical body. There's no need to do anything. Simply, all we're doing now through this entire exercise is cultivating a deeper level of listening. And actually, what we're doing is learning to listen to what is unfolding at this moment, in the present moment, starting with ourselves. So in essence, training yourself to listen to the impulses and the information that you're receiving from your body through sensation. And if then just notice what's arising in your body. And a lot of this exercise and the practice of respectful confrontation is learn how to move through the world with flow and balance and resilience. So if you're noticing that energy wants to flow, don't judge it, don't do anything with it, let it flow on its own. If emotions begin to rise up, let them flow. All feelings are welcome. From your center, become aware of your emotional body. What emotions are you present to at this moment? And again, through a very relaxed, spacious breath, breathing into your center, just allowing whatever arises to flow. From your center, become aware of your mental body. How are your thoughts? Not necessarily what are your thoughts, but how are your thoughts? Are they tight and judgmental? Are they spacious and generous, compassionate? No judgment, simply notice. And really being aware, that is, from your awareness, from your center, in your lower belly, that you are observing your thoughts. And it's that part of you, the awareness part of you, that we're cultivating in this meditation. And from keeping your awareness in your center as the foundation of the exercise, now bring awareness to your heart, or the middle of your chest, where I would say your heart power resides. Compassion, respect, understanding, connection. And from your center and from your heart, from your personal power and your heart power, ask yourself the question, how connected do I feel at this moment to something larger than myself? And that might be something spiritual, it might be humanity, it might be ancestors and family, it might be your highest values. It's not a question of dwelling on the what that something larger than yourself is, but at this moment, feeling in your center and your heart, how connected do you feel to it? Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And with more of an awareness of yourself at this moment, in this present moment, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Now, with more of an awareness of yourself in this present moment, from your center and from your heart, keeping your eyes closed, become aware of your surroundings. From all 10 directions, sounds, smells, temperature. Observing and investigating how your surroundings might be influencing you at this moment, or how you might be influencing your surroundings. Now, with more of an awareness in the present moment with yourself and with your surroundings, how you might be impacting yourself and the surroundings, and vice versa. From your center and from your heart, take a full breath in through your nose, and out through your mouth. And now, with more of an awareness of yourself and your surroundings in this present moment, from your center and from your heart, opening to a connection from your center and from your heart with those who are joined in on this meditation session. Just simply with your presence and your awareness, with your personal power and your heart, connecting with those in this meditation circle. Various parts of the United States, Europe. And notice and allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. And considering or asking the question, might I be impacting the others in this meditation circle at this moment? And how might they be impacting me? And noticing, as I said, this exercise is to develop a deeper level of resilience and connection and fierce compassion, increasing our capacity to hold more and more beings in our hearts with peace and equanimity. So as we continue to increase our capacity of connecting from our personal power in our heart, starting with self, with surroundings, and now with those in this meditation circle, maintaining that connection. Now from your center and from your heart, opening to a connection with the human family, all human beings. First focusing on those that you might call loved ones. So with a connection with yourself, with your surroundings, with those in this meditation circle, from your center and from your heart, connecting with all of those beings that you would identify as loved ones, anywhere on the planet. And notice how that impacts you. Consider how you might be impacting them. And now with an awareness of your connection, heart connection with yourself, your surroundings, those in this meditation circle, those you would consider loved ones, from your center and from your heart, connecting with those that you would consider or call strangers. My assumption would be that for you, that there are more people in this category than in the other two, or the one we've just done so far. Could be someone on the other side of the planet. Could be someone from an opposing political party or the same political party. Could even be your neighbor. From your center and from your heart, connecting with those that you would call strangers. Considering how you might be impacting them at this moment and how they might be impacting you. And now with more of a connection with yourself, your surroundings, those in this meditation circle, those in the human family that you would call loved ones and strangers, from your center and from your heart, connecting with those that you might label adversary. And notice. Cultivating a deeper level of resilience in your heart, deeper level of compassion. You might even see faces of those that you would consider adversaries, or they might be just a general sense. They may be close by, they may be far away. Considering how you might be influencing them at this moment and how they might be influencing you. allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. Now, with more of an awareness of yourself, your surroundings, those in this meditation circle, and with the rest of the human family, whether you consider them to be loved ones, strangers, or adversaries, deep, deep into your heart, from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in through your nose, and out through your mouth. Just take a moment and just notice what's happening in your own system, in your own nervous system, your own energetic body, if that's a phrase you use, or your own level of presence. Having now spent time to increase your heart, the capacity of your heart and level of connection. And see if it's possible to maintain this level, if this is your experience, to maintain your level of expansion, of more capacity in your heart. As we now zero in and bring our focus in. So still holding the whole human family in your heart. Now bringing your focus back to mostly focusing on those in this meditation circle. Again, in various parts of North America, various parts of Europe. And with the human family in your heart and the meditation, those in the meditation circle in your heart, now bringing your focus back to your surroundings. Connecting with your surroundings, always with your personal power, your core, and with your heart. And finally, with a sense of awareness and capacity in your heart, bringing your focus back to yourself, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Bringing the human family with you. And actually reminding yourself that there's a really good chance that you're also part of that human family. Bringing yourself into your heart. And again, take a moment to just feel this in your nervous system, in your cells, in your organs. And remember this. Let your muscle memory remember this. And imagine a weekly or daily practice of this as a way of cultivating deeper level of resilience and compassion. And a way of closing this, deep in your heart, from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And when you're ready, very slowly open your eyes, shake your body. And I'd like to, before we close, I'd like to say a few more words about how we can use this meditation and how we can use this to really shift, perhaps, consciously choose into shifting our current culture. But before I do that, I'd like to open it up. Is there anyone who'd like to share what your experience was, any discoveries that you feel compelled to want to share with the group? You can type something if you don't feel comfortable saying it. Again, it's really great to see some familiar faces. Ken, it's great to see you here, or at least names.
Hi, I'm Tammy, and I'm relatively new, having joined last week at the invitation of Amelia. Hello for those of you who I didn't see last week. Something that occurred to me last week, and I shared it with Amelia after the meditation. She and I had a brief call, and it's stayed with me throughout the course of the week, and came to me again this week. Joe, when you led us through the meditation and you asked us to consider loved ones, I think what I heard last week was just to consider loved ones, not my loved ones or our loved ones, but just loved ones. And it occurred to me that in my day-to-day life, the way that my life is organized, I'm with people for the most part throughout the day who are loved by someone, even if they don't know that or don't feel that or don't walk in that on a regular basis. They are loved by someone. Almost all of the people that I am in contact with on a regular basis have families and have some place that they came from, someone who loves them. And so it occurred to me that I am surrounded by loved ones, even if they are not my loved ones. And then if that's the case, then how would I engage with them? How would I treat people if I thought of everyone that I engage with as a loved one, somebody's loved one? And so I found then this week this sort of merging or overlap, not merging, but overlap between strangers and loved ones, that I imagine will stay with me for the week, and I'll probably noodle on that a bit as well.
Great. Thank you. Wow, beautiful. That's a lot of wisdom in that. And that is the aspect. The purpose of this is that this is the part about listening internally. Why is it that we have arguments and fights? There's I don't know if any of you know the Peace Pilgrim. It's an amazing woman, and if you don't know about her, I recommend you take a look at who she is. She has a quote that I quote in my book and that has really inspired my work. She says, "We're not going to be able to solve things like world war and crime until each one of us take a look at our own personal psychological violence and take steps to change that." So what you mentioned is a beautiful meditation of saying that, we're all beings and we all deserve love, and we've all had love. So in a sense, the purpose is overcoming the parts of us that create separation. So that, Tammy, that's the answer, is what is it, and that's the resilience part. What is it within ourselves that are keeping us separate? And oftentimes, there are probably many reasons, but one label is our labeling. And that unconsciously, many beings choose to lump people into loved ones, strangers, and adversaries, and we react accordingly. We have an indifference to strangers, we have an attachment to loved ones, and we have an aversion to strangers, to adversaries. And so the point of this is to start looking at, most of that's arising in our own head, in a sense. And the more we can look at that and see that these are unexamined assumptions, that if we took some time to really see, well, they're a loved one because I choose to make them a loved one. They're a stranger because I choose to see them as a stranger, and they're an adversary because I choose to see them as an adversary. And that doesn't mean that you need to love everyone who harms you. It simply means that maybe I can investigate a little bit, and that could shift my level of connection with all beings. And that, in a sense, is the key, is for us to be able to look at that. And the more we're able to cultivate that, then we see that a lot of our labeling is what's keeping us in these polarizing patterns. And that the idea is what will lead us to deeper levels of connection. Yeah. That's one way to look at it.
Joe, may I add one more thing?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I apologize. May I add one more thing?
Sure.
I think also what I realized last week from the meditation as well, is that a threat is an objective reality, but an adversary is a subjective reality. That right. I may be threatened by something, but it seems that I make a judgment and create an attention if I take on a person as an adversary.
Yeah.
Because in an adversary, only one person can win, but with a threat, both can be made better. I don't quite have that sorted out yet. It's just something that started to come to me.
Well, thank you. And it sounds like we're speaking the same language in a lot of ways. And that is the idea is how can we take more responsibility for checking our own selves, our own labels, so that we can come into deeper levels of connection. And to tie this into, Cheryl and I have a lot of talks about this, from the National Institute of Civil Discourse. And, what I was thinking recently is that democracy or constitution, this idea of democracy, you could say is kind of like an immune system for a group of people. And what it's doing is what an immune system does is tries to keep a system healthy. And it's not a person or a group of people that it's trying to keep out. It's greed. For instance, you can say greed and what manifests with greed and fear. And this idea of cultivating this idea of what is truly the enemy of civility and democracy, in a sense. And so this idea that it's not necessarily a person, but within us, what are we holding within us? And so you begin to see that there is more in common than there is different. And, one of the things I always say is that it doesn't mean you have to love your adversaries. It simply means, can you cultivate more open-heartedness? And that doesn't mean your heart has to be completely open. And I'm referring this now to a question by Jennifer. It's just that, what is compassion? So this exercise is with loved ones, strangers, or enemies that, what will it take to open our hearts? And even if your heart is 1% open, that's still open, which means that if your heart is closed to someone in the past, and if there's some way of cultivating even 1% of opening your heart, making sure you're safe and making sure you're still taking care of yourself. If your heart is 1% open, then there's 1% more of a chance of reconciliation and new solutions. And that is the essence of what, to look at what's playing out in our world right now, is that a lot of it has to do with because we're very polarized, which means if we're polarized, we're not seeing individual human beings. We're seeing labels. And imagine if this was our mission, or you could say if life purpose is to engage with more people who are different, or maybe not even different, but just more people. And in terms of how do you break polarity, if you look at it this way, if these are two people, let's say you and me, any one of you, and you and me, what the polarity does is it forces us to look out here, because it's the both extremes that are making the loudest noises and are getting our attention. Doesn't mean that they're more powerful, either extreme, on the left or the right, if you're looking at politics. Just means they're louder. And actually, if you take some time to investigate, there aren't many of them in terms of numbers. But what they've done is they've made us turn our ways this way, which means we have our backs to each other. And we're not relating to each other. And there's much more people in the middle. And I'm not talking about politics middle. I'm just talking about people who are willing to engage, who truly want solutions. So in a sense, part of this meditation and what we're cultivating here is to be able to turn around and notice that there are far more people who want to engage, who want connection, who share values of equality, equity for all, compassion, respect. And our job, at least I'll say my job, I speak for myself, is to connect with more and more people who are willing here to gain a stronger sense of unity and alliance. And the stronger we become here, what's out here isn't as strong and powerful. So that's the idea, is what do we have to look at within ourselves that are still keeping us in very strict sense of labeling or judging or seeing others in one way, so that we can get to see that we are all human. We are all humans. And what this woman said in this training, it's great to feel human again. How can I connect from my humanity with the humanity of another? So Tammy, thanks for all that, for being able to being an impetus to share all that. Does anyone else have any quick comments?
Just grateful to be in this space with you all and to be really trying to hold that core human place together, that place of seeing and exploring other human beings as human beings, not adversaries or enemies or so it's just really a very special moment I feel right now in our country and on our globe, and within this minute of being with you all. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for the vision you're holding in the world. So we opened with a motivation. We did our practice, and we're going to close now with a dedication. I always say it's actually miraculous that this random group of people, about 20 people from around the world, come together to hold space like this and to generate this level of open-heartedness. So let's take advantage of that and use this energy and direct it towards spaces or people or organizations around the world that could use a little love and a little positive energy. So if anyone wants to just mention any places for dedication, loved ones. Oh, there's Huck. I see Huck. So hold that in your heart. Anyone you want to dedicate to, people who could use some energy, certainly to all organizations in the world who are really dedicated to fostering the health of the planet. Marilyn, thank you for your contribution of the earth, loving the earth, and all organizations that could use support. And the two that I always add, may all beings on this planet have enough fresh water and food to eat, fresh water to drink. And may all governments govern from a place of wisdom as opposed to fear and greed. And it's great to see you, a lot of new faces. Hopefully we'll see you again every week to keep joining us and to cultivate this practice. Bring new friends and tell people about it. And if Huck comes every week, I'll be very happy. So with that, one final breath. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And thank you very much. Have a good week.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.